Hey friends, so what showed up today was kind of a reflection or a marinating on some thoughts and experiences that came through yesterday because we had our teacher training, our piano teacher training session yesterday, which I was, as always, inspired by and informed by. I'm having some really powerful experiences there. And what kind of came through, I'll before I get there, what happened yesterday was I had a lesson in which I got a fair amount of interruption. Madeline was teaching me, and she kept interrupting me to kind of bring me back to a particular kind of focus. And what we were focusing on varied a little bit, although it was mostly kind of in the realm of the pressure that I was using and the listening I was doing. And whenever I would kind of deviate out of that, or whenever I would drop that, she would stop me. And the result was that she stopped me a lot. And it felt like I was getting stopped a lot. And it's something that I have observed over the course of my now approximately 1 year of work with her, is that some days that's just kind of what happens. I get stopped a lot. Other days I get a lot more flow, and the nature of the lesson and the focus is slightly different. But one of the other students commented on this after the lesson and kind of pointed to the fact that I never really that I never really had that much space to just play. And I was kind of touched by what felt like an empathic relationship with my experience, because getting stopped all the time is never fun. It's something that when I work with my own students, I'm always, when you stop a student, that there's an impulse being frustrated. And little by little, as you do that repeatedly, that frustration can build up. It's a kind of, it's a knowable aspect of the work that you're gonna be interrupting a student's flow, but not simply for the sake of interrupting their flow, obviously. It's for the sake of continuing to pull someone's focus out of their habits, out of their habitual way of doing something, and bring it to a potentially new way of doing something. And in a way, this is kind of like the summary. It wasn't even a takeaway. It was just a reminder of the fact that if we are human beings who want to grow, then one of the things we have to know about ourselves and about that process is that there is frustration in store for us, because our habitual patterns have a kind of momentum. They have a pattern is by definition, it's a pattern. If you looked at neurologically, it's a mental efficiency. The mind considers it an efficiency to not have to rethink every step of a process, but to be able to trigger steps of a process automatically. So you start the process and then it runs on autopilot. That's more efficient than having to tie up the brain with rethinking every step of that pattern. Well, guess what? What if that pattern is not optimal? What if that pattern works pretty well, but it breaks down under certain conditions, like we're trying to play faster, we're trying to play more musically, we're trying to play longer, we're trying to execute a certain technique, but not just for a measure or two, but over the course of an entire etude or piece. What if under those conditions our pattern breaks down? Well, then guess what? We have to frustrate it. We have to stop it we have to stop the automatic pilotness of it and reprogram, come back to a new thing over and over and over again, as many times as it takes, to actually let a new pattern go in. And there's this weird thing that has happened to me over time, because, on the face of it, on the surface of things, a lesson like that is obviously more kind of stressful, and there's frustration. There's psychological and emotional frustration that takes place anytime that we're interrupting a pattern, because our mind and our emotions are attached to that pattern. That's what makes it a pattern. But that doesn't mean that we have to be attached. That doesn't mean that we have to identify with it, or that we have to that our consciousness has to be attached. So in other words, I've gotten to where I can have that experience of repeated frustration, and even a kind of psychological and emotional buildup of frustration, without me actually getting frustrated, without my center of kind of psychic gravity feeling like I'm getting frustrated. Because one of the things that allows me to have that freedom is the fact that I've seen this happen before, and I know that we're going somewhere good. I know that the temporary kind of experience of frustrating a pattern is an evolutionary one. I have a teacher that I trust. I know how this works. I understand that that if I'm really serious about breaking habits and building better ones, that this is part of the picture. It's part of the job. So there's this weird way in which the experience of frustration has actually become a kind of source of fuel or even inspiration. It takes a little presence of mind, because if we're not pretty conscious and present, then the frustration itself is going to feel like the experience we're having. It's going to feel like that's what's going on. I'm frustrated. But that doesn't have to be the case. If we can actually kind of like put some distance in there, step back. I always talk about like meditation puts an air gap between ourselves and our habits, our patterns, our body, our mind, to use Sadhguru's terms, our karma or our memory. Everything in our system, whether it's our cells, our thoughts, our programmed behaviors, all of that is memory of a certain form. And we can put a little bit of a gap between ourselves and that memory. But that takes practice. That requires an effective meditation practice in order to be able to take that step back and have that remove and basically giving us the freedom to observe rather than be enmeshed in. So there's this interesting kind of like flip that has happened with frustration for me, because that experience of frustration, this other student who was kind of commenting on how, I think if I can paraphrase her, she was saying that she was kind of feeling the buildup of frustration that she saw me experiencing. But the truth is, that wasn't an unpleasant experience for me, aside from the kind of like the fact that continual interruption creates the emotional experience of a frustrated pattern, the overall experience was not one of frustration for me. It was really like, oh, it's almost like a privilege. Oh, wow. Look how much of my unconscious and not fully effective habits I'm being given the opportunity to dissolve here, you know. And if we can really stay there and really breathe in the gift of that reprogramming, we start to move through our development a lot faster, because the primary thing that creates resistance to development and evolution is our attachment to our patterns. If we're attached to our patterns and our habits, we're not going to want to let them go. It's never fun to let go of something that we've become attached to. It's just not the way fun works. It's never fun. But if the experience is happening here and we can observe that experience, and we as our higher self know what is really going on, and we have enough perspective to see beyond that initial kind of maybe not so fun experience, well, now we're living in a different reality, right? We're literally living in a different reality. There's one reality happening in our physical, psychological, emotional system, and we can hold all of that within a larger container where it actually is kind of fun. It's actually amazing. It's miraculous. I'm watching myself I get granular about a pattern that I don't have the power to change on my own, because I can't see that closely, but a teacher can. You know, a really present outside observer can keep redirecting my focus there and help me build something new. Amazing. What's life all about if not that? You know, so something I wanted to relay, and I'm affirming it for myself and also offering it. So thanks for watching, folks. Love you. Have a wonderful day. Appreciate you. I'll see you tomorrow.